Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Tuesday edition of Interesting Ideas for Interesting People so that they can have greater impact, influence, and perhaps a greater income of good things into their life. And that sound to remember for Tuesday is always CQ, CQ, CQ. That's calling all stations, which means we'd just like to talk to anybody who wants to talk to us, and we would be grateful if, just like the ham radio operator said CQ or tapped it out on his telegraph key, he says, I want to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to talk to anybody, and we'd be grateful if you'd talk back to us. So that's what it means when we CQ you on Tuesday. Hey, the times again are challenging, and all of us are looking for ways to make some significant steps, both in our understanding of life and what we are to be about. So perhaps an old story from a long time ago might be helpful. So if you'll join me, I'm going to go back many, many, many years in my lifetime, before I was a broadcaster, when I was a philosophy teacher. That's right, I was a teacher of philosophy. And no, it wasn't in some college or university. I was one of the first persons to actually teach philosophy to 16-year-olds, to juniors in high school. And we had some remarkable things happen. And I think they might even be helpful to you. So if you'll join me for about 15 minutes, that's what we do. Let's see if I can talk to you and ask you about the one big question. What is the one big question? Interesting Ideas, that's the program, and it begins right now. I was reminded of it again because I was going through my stack of stuff for many, many years and through my books. I'm at that stage now where I'm giving more things away and trying to find out if there's anything I've done that's worth keeping or passing on. And I've got a stack of stuff, and so I was going through it. And I came across this. Now, a number of years ago when I was a school teacher, and I worked very hard at the job. I was an old-fashioned school teacher. I was not into any of this modern stuff that we have to teach them. I was in the business of teaching them to appreciate their history, the world they came from, and the people who'd gone before them, and what it meant. And I truly believed that one of the best ways to avoid the bad mistakes in the future is perhaps to look at some of the bad mistakes and some of the good causes that came from the past. One of the things I wanted young men and women to understand was life did not begin when they were born, and they are not the smartest people in the universe. It's not all about them. They need to learn it's about others, and it's about other times and places and spaces. And so I was not just a history teacher, I was a performer. As I said, I just didn't speak the word, I performed the word. And it caught them. They enjoyed it. Even today, I get, they're pretty old now, I still get reminiscences from some students who remember me. Or as they say, they didn't call me Mr. Houston. They asked me if they could call me Mr. Houston instead of, they said, we would prefer to call you Stan. And I said, no, you cannot call me Stan. I'm your teacher. I'm not your buddy. I'm not your friend. My name is Mr. Houston. That's a hard name to pronounce. Can we call you Mr. H? And I said, I'll take it. And so that's what I was. I was Mr. H. And that was fine. And it worked well. And in this philosophy class, it was a new experiment. I suggested it. And thank goodness I had some supervisors who were really savvy, and we were trying to develop that history would be a very different thing in that it wouldn't just be like there used to be, okay, here's world history and here is U.S. history that they have to take, but we could take areas within each subject arena and that it would be more of their interest, and so they wouldn't necessarily take all the same 12-week classes in history. They could take different classes within history. And one of the classes they could take was world philosophy in the history of man. Of course, we said at that time. Now, of course, we'd have to say in the history of men and women. And that's fine. But philosophy in our history and how it had really very much influenced who we are and what we believe. And they asked me, they said, well, how many classes do you think people will sign up for that? And I said, well, I'll be grateful if we just get, one class, 30 kids, and then I'll just teach one class of that a day. Well, what happened is 90 kids signed up for it. And so I landed up teaching it 3 times a day, at least during that particular quarter of the curriculum. And today, there are still people who respond to some of the things that happened in that philosophy class. One of the things I used to ask them to do was this, and let me just kind of go back to my notes and tell you about it, okay? Here I wrote this down. The exercise came in the form of a question about a question. I told the students to imagine that we had all been gifted with a big supercomputer. Now, the reason part of that is actually right down the road from our high school, which was in the southern suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul, was a large computer company that actually was making, in fact, there were 2 companies that were making some of the biggest supercomputers in the world. And in those days, a big computer or a supercomputer was a big computer. It was big. It was huge. And they were aware of that. In fact, some of their parents actually worked those companies. And I said, okay, this is a supercomputer that is so powerful that it knew everything in the whole universe. All right? Our class had the computer, and it could give us the answer to any question we asked. Just ask the question, and you will get the answer. We also had the assurance that the answer we received would be the truth. It would be the truth. The problem was that it could only answer one question, and then it would blow up. I then challenged each student to assume that they had the opportunity to ask that one question. Okay, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, everybody in the world is watching because you get to ask the one question. And if we know the answer, it will be great. What question would you ask? By the way, then they had a day to think about it, and then they had to come up, and they had 2 or 3 minutes to tell the class what question they would ask and why. And they did a pretty good job of it. Of course, they're 16, they're 17, but most of them remembered that they shouldn't be asking a question that would benefit just them, but it would benefit other people too. And so that's what we did. And it was fascinating. So I just encourage you to think about that yourself, because let me tell you the rest of the story. Many years after that, when I was a business performance coach, a client came in, and he came to me and he said he was seeking guidance about a career and future direction. In preparation for our meeting, I asked him to be prepared with the one big question that he needed guidance on in his situation. All right. Okay, you're in this situation. You're in this mess. You're in this opportunity, whatever it is. Okay. But you have somebody who will help you. What's the one big question? The one thing that would help you the most in knowing what to do? Think about that right now. When it comes to your life, your business, what's the one question that you would really like to have the answer to? Getting the question right is oftentimes the most important part. Then I oftentimes remind people, and I remind you, that you know what? The master teacher. That's right. As I say, Jesus came into the world asking questions and telling stories. Yet today we often give answers, speeches, and preach sermons. Maybe he had a better idea. You know, sometimes the best help comes from getting the question right. Because sometimes the right answer to the wrong question is often the reason we get it wrong. Maybe it isn't just a trivial Tuesday. Maybe this could be important to you right now in your life, in your business. What's the one question that would help you the most if you could get the answer to it? What's the one big question that you would like to get the answer to? Well, why don't you let me know? I would love to hear from you. Reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. And you know what? If it's good enough, we'll just give you a phone call with your permission, and we'll put your big question on the radio. And maybe other people will help you with the question. Let's see what that question might be. I think this is an interesting idea. I think it's a challenging idea, and that's what we do on this program. Interesting ideas for interesting people so they can live more interesting, more influential, more impactful, live with greater insight, and have good things come into their life. That's what we do, and we try to do it well. We'll be back. Thank you very much for your time. And please keep in mind that we might be able to help you. Many years, first of all, in business performance coaching. And we've got a little bit of wisdom, insight, and truth. And a few stars to show for what we did. The other day, 5 young gentlemen reached out to me from many years ago. And I helped them build their company, and they found that it was very worthwhile, and somebody made a big offer for it. And now they have been able to sell their company, and they get to work in it, should work in it for some time, but they did very, very well, and they were very grateful for my help. And all of them now are far, far richer than I will ever be. But that's okay. That's good. I did it for them, and I did it well. So perhaps I could be helpful to you. Now, the one question I know you should be asking is this: how can I reach my audience? Now, if you're in life and business, God has given you an audience that you need to reach, and you need to reach them, and you need to reach them with good stuff so that they will follow you, trust you, buy from you. And perhaps we can work on that big question. How can I reach my audience? I don't have the answer, but I have many attempts that might work for you. And let's see if we could do that. Again, reach out to me. StanHouston@gmail.com. StanHouston@gmail.com. Go to our radio website at witradio.net. witradio.net. All the best and blessings to you. May the rest of the week go well for you. I hope I say this because I want it myself. My wife and I talked this morning. She said, we're praying for a miracle. We're praying for a miracle. And if that's something you need in your life, we're praying for you too. Best and blessings. May the miracle be yours. Bye for now.